first item. Roll call. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Tall.
Here.
Councilmember Smith. Councilmember Fitzgerald. Councilmember Alvarez.
Here.
Councilmember Clark.
Here.
Councilmember Stokes. Councilmember Todd.
Here.
Councilmember Saper.
Here.
Oh, there we go. Pledge of allegiance this evening will be led by Councilmember Toll. All right, thank you. Next item is the approval of the agenda. I am going to ask that we make one amendment, though. If we could move item 15 and 16 immediately after number 6, all three items relate to River North NKC Oktoberfest. That way we can just knock it all out at once. Councilmember Saper. Okay, we will do 10 and 11, and those will get moved to the first regular items after the consent agenda. Everyone, we got all that? Mallory's going to keep track of that all for me. Okay. With that, is there a motion to approve the amended agenda?
Move to approve?
Second.
All in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next item, comments from the public. Anyone from the public wishing to speak this evening? Yep. That's good evening.
I'm Liz Ryan, 2417 Erie. You know, I never thought much about this parking by the Oxford place until I had 2 or 3 trips this week. And I know that I could spend a little walking. But I was from Paul and Jack's almost to Dollar General to find a place to park. And I've been a customer with PAX for since 79 or more. And she doesn't want to say anything, but she's really, really upset. When we had that apartment complex being built, knowing that we have parking problems, how well was this thought over? I don't know. So what can we do now? I don't know. That's all I have to say, but I'm very disappointed. And when I heard Mr. Miller talk and some of the other, I was, But when I became the victim 3 times, yeah, I didn't like it. Okay, and number 2, now that I've complained, we have a star. Victoria. We were in the Kansas City Star today about that, and I think the mayor, you've read it.
Yeah, thank you for dropping that off.
Okay, I just thought it was quite a nice publication, and I hope everybody gets to read it. I gave the article to the mayor, and Roberta informed me I hadn't had time to read the paper yet, so it's a good thing. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Further public comments? Seeing none, we will move on to item number 6, River North NKC Toberfest. And this, I guess we're going to start with, there we go.
Good evening, Mayor and
Good evening.
Council. So River North would like to present a new event that they would like the City Council's consideration for support through the Convention and Tourism Fund. And it is my pleasure to introduce River North's president, Sean.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks, Council and Mayor. Yeah, thank you, Kim, too, for giving us this podium. So we are looking to, River North, if you don't know, is a small organization of local businesses and mainly it's service-oriented businesses in North Kansas City. And kind of grassroots, been around for just since before COVID. So we've basically been looking at trying to do different events, and this event this fall, this NKC Toberfest, kind of grew out of all that discussion. What we're looking at doing is a 1-day, 6-hour event on Swift Street. Yeah, I guess I'll just follow this. Basically, with several different components, an all-day music stage, an Oktoberfest beer garden throughout the whole entire area between 14th and 15th. a local vendor market, food trucks and other food vendors, and also a small street game area. This event will be a true one-block street festival. It will be a ticketed event to kind of weed out the just people from just wandering in, but also to help offset the cost of the music events, the tents. It's a nominal cost that we're looking at, just like $5. The rest of the event is a full pay event. Let's see. The location, like I said, is we're targeting Swiss Street between 14th and 15th, so just a one-block area. The nice thing about this area is that it has commercial buildings on both sides of the street. So the cost of barricades and the cost of securing the area is reduced. It's also a smaller area just to manage, for our first year. Try to not get too big too fast. So you can kind of look at the map up there that I did real fast. But so the stage is closer to 14th, covered tent areas throughout the whole area, or I'm sorry, throughout the south area. And that's because it is a rain or shine event. If people pay, we want them to be able to come and enjoy, even if it's raining. And let's see, the music stage will be, pretty high quality, not, good quality musicians, local acts. It'll be, family-friendly genres. But like I said, there'll be a nominal charge for the music stage. The beer garden component kind of takes advantage of the recently changed ordinance to allow for alcohol in the streets. So the goal is, like I said, to have the whole area to where people can walk around with a drink if they choose. We'll feature local breweries, alcohol vendors from both North Kansas City and from the surrounding area. There's just not enough choices in North Kansas City, but so we'll also do the same thing with our food trucks and vendors. I don't know if you want to, yeah, there we go. And like I said, everything is full pay. So this allows for all these different vendors to actually potentially make a profit, and also adds to sales tax revenue for the city. And the same thing with the Maker Fair. We are going to try to have 10 to 15 different makers, same deal, kind of high quality vendors. We'll also have a free street game area just for people to kind of hang out and play. I've attached, I don't know if they had the budget beforehand or, yeah, it is in the slide, yeah. So we are let's see, our budget is up on the screen right now. We are actually asking for a grant from the city of $20,000 to help put this on. That will also be in addition to ticket sales, additional sponsorships, vendor fees, brewery fees, food truck fees, basically getting us to about $44,000 in revenue, and this is all projected, obviously. Lots of expenses to put on an event like this. The main one being tent rental, stage rental, but that cost also includes hiring an event coordinator who will take a lot of the weight off of the individual River North members, because we all own businesses and it's a challenge to get anything done. The barricade cost is also could potentially come down, but our expenses too are roughly about $40,000. Let's see. I did meet with Captain Freeman last week and kind of discussed the security and the issues with it, with holding an event like this. And we will go through the city to secure police officers for the event. and that is in the budget as well. But also, just the way it's set up, being a small area, it will be gated on the front, or I'm sorry, on the north and the south side both. And then on the sides, obviously, we've got the commercial buildings to help us with controlling the area. So like I said, just to summarize, the components, there'll be a music stage, quality music acts, an Oktoberfest beer garden, local food vendors, local vendor market, a little street game area. Our purpose is really to create an annual experience that brings more awareness to what North Kansas City offers. It'll support locally owned brick and mortar businesses, generate some sales tax revenue and tourism revenue for North Kansas City. And it'll also serve as a vehicle for continued financial health and growth for River North and our mission. And so what we need to make this happen is some financial, logistical, and public works assistance from the city, long-term engagement and, local engagement and involvement through sponsorship and promotion and attendance. We really want a lot of the local area to come to this event. And we also need expertise from experienced event planners and marketing and PR coordinators, which we've already reached out to and kind of have ready to go. So we're ready to push forward and make this happen. So I just kind of finalize with the last screen, which is, if we make it happen, let's polka.
Councilmember Saper.
Have you contacted the businesses on the impacted street?
There would be only one business that would be open that day, North Kansas City Auto Trim, because it's such a small area. We have not contacted them directly, but I know Harold pretty well, and so does Kylie, who runs Velo Garage. We talked to him about a previous event we were going to do, and he's completely fine with it. So I know that he would be. The good thing also is he does have a back alley where he can access his business, and we would make accommodations for him.
Okay, I would feel more comfortable with supporting this if
Sure.
you'd contacted the businesses, because they need to know and
Sure.
they need to buy into it.
Sure.
Okay,
Okay. Yeah. and-
not just assuming it, but actually contact.
Yeah. I actually have an old truck parked in his lot. So right now, for a while, I know he's a very, very good guy and very accommodating person. So that's probably why we haven't reached out specifically to him. And for what we know, that's the only business that's open on Saturdays in that small area.
Appreciate you presenting. It looks like an exciting event you're working on here.
Yeah.
Still some early planning stages, but yeah, it looks like potential to be a great event. Is there further comments? Okay. Do we have any other staff comments? Okay. So we'll roll into 15 and 16 then, which is the number 15 contract for. Let me try again. Number 15 contract with River North District for 2023 NKC Toberfest and related services.
Did we skip number 7?
Yeah, that was
Oh,
part of my
okay,
very
missed
beginning.
that.
Yeah. Just so they can get out of here. Everyone
All right.
really just that item. There's 3 items related to that. Number 15, contract with River North District for 2023 NKC Toberfest and related services. Resolution number 23054. All right, so now we have a contract, is there any questions on the contract? Or a presentation on the contract?
There's not really a presentation. It's heavily patterned off of the Snake Saturday contract for services, considering it's got the same funding source. And then the adjacent item would be a budget amendment within our current budget year to financially support this contract.
Perfect. And is there a motion to approve the contract?
Move to approve. I mean, based on the fact that we are trying to make initiatives to bring people toward North Kansas City, I know this is a part of kind of our overall plan, so I do support this.
Second?
Second, further council member comments? All those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Item number 16, budget amendment for River North NKC Toberfest, resolution number 23058. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Further council member comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries.
Thank you,
Thank
council.
you. Thank you. Now, we go back to number 7, which is Link City Agreement Extension, which I believe is Mike this evening.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. A couple meetings ago, we talked about the Link City Agreement. Knox was here to talk about their side of it. So I wanted to circle back around. Since that time, I've had a couple discussions with some of you, a couple questions. I've met with Knox a couple times. One of the questions, or I'd say two of them, centered around the management fee and possibility of adjusting the sharing of the surplus and loss. Met with Knox, and they said on the management fee, their thought was they have personnel that they do have to pay and show on the books, so they didn't really show interest in not showing that, finding a different method, and they didn't really touch the shortfall sharing and surplus. Basically, at the second meeting, they reiterated that what they would like to see is extension for 3 years, and then during those 3 years, seeing what North Kansas City looks like, but work on what the next agreement looks like. I did do some figuring. So when they took over the agreement from the city, the management fee was based off the city's 6.5 full-time equivalent positions. Since that time, part of the agreement also allows for them to increase that management fee every year based on the consumer price index for all urban consumers. They have not done that. Had they done that every year based on the historical CPI, the management fee right now would be $824,156. Currently, it's $679, $610 is what they're showing for 2023. So taking that into account, and then also into account the city's historical raises, because this kind of one of the questions that was also asked was, it was 6.5 full-time equivalent then. What is it now? Are they maintaining, or it actually works out to the management fee that they're receiving now works out to 4.87 full-time equivalents as what they're being credited or being able to expense towards. So I wanted to relay the information, like I said, the questions that I had received, see if there were any further comments, concerns, but also relay what Knox had expressed in the meetings.
Comments, Councilmember Saber.
If I understood you correctly, they are actually down 2 full-time employees? Or what, based upon what their original billing is?
Correct. They
Well,
haven't-
that sounds like an increase, frankly. Per person.
No, they're good. The management fee, so they're able to expense that management fee to account for their employee, paying employees to maintain and operate the Link City. So when the management fee was put in place, it was equal to 6.5 full-time employees. With their, lack of increase every year, what they're crediting or what they're being credited for, or the current management fee is equivalent to 4.87. So it's less on their end, if that makes sense.
Councilmember Fitzgerald, I believe.
Um,
You look ready.
yeah, I have just a couple different thoughts. I've been kind of bouncing around on this. The way this contract is set up, my understanding at least, is Knox isn't required to actually track personnel costs or personnel related expenses. That's sort of substituted by this management fee as a more or less fixed fee. The management fee makes up about 60% of the total cost of operating the network. That's at least reported in the audited financial statements. So from a top-level view, over the 10-year term of this, we might be looking at close to $6 million plus in management fee for this network. I think it's about $600,000 a year, 10-year contract. But that being said, the management fee and the expenses offset the revenue of this network. Most years it about breaks even, and then when we come down to this bottom line dollar amount for running the network, profit and loss, that type of thing, that bottom line fee is in cost shared with the city. So just looking at it that way, it's not costing us a huge amount of dollars to run. I think it was, Mike, was it $20,000 a year? Is that?
An average of 22.
Yeah, so average of $22,000 a year actual cash flow cost out of the city. The part that gives me some pause is just that this management fee, like I said, is 60% of the total cost. We don't really have a good understanding of, is this a true representation of what it's costing to run the network with this kind of different business model now that's not in-house for the city. So I'm having a little trouble knowing where to go with this. It's just you have this big $6 million plus amount. We don't really know what's in that. So just a opportunity cost there, balancing that against the relatively minimal cash kind of going out the door, so to speak.
Thank you. Councilmember Tull.
You're touching on exactly what I was thinking. So thinking that it's 4.5 people equivalent and used to be 6.5, that is all arbitrary because we have no data backing up what is the management fee. They assigned it a value in human people at the time, but we don't have anything to back that up. So what you're saying is exactly right. It seems like, oh, well, we're not spending that much money on it every year, but we have no idea the actual cost that we're putting in at the start, which is why we asked for a more detailed explanation of what the management fee consisted of. So we could sit there and say, it's about 4.5 employees, but we have no idea. We don't have anything to back that up. So I would say, I mean, at this point, we don't have enough information to go forward.
One of the things NOCIX talked about this, I want to say it was 18 or 19, and I'll have to get with them that when they were going back and forth on the, call it negotiation, the disputed fees, that they had an accountant put together their detail of the management fee. So I can see if I can get that, if they'd provide that, to break it out. I know the original fee was based off of what the city was paying at the time for personnel and personnel-related costs. But it'd be, yeah, seeing time cards or payroll, I suppose. I'll see what I can get from them.
Is that, I mean, I heard from a couple, is that generally council consensus, though, from everyone else, is to see further breakdown of management fees? Okay, just wanted to confirm that. There we go. So, I guess management fee transparency is broadly put. Further questions, comments, concerns on this item? Did you have anything else, Mike?
I did not.
All right, then we will do this again in approximately 2 weeks. Done? All right. Next item, budget review.
All right.
You're too excited for this.
All right. Again, it's my pleasure to present the 2024 proposed budget to all of you. Tonight I'll step through the transmittal, and the department heads are going to step through their areas with overviews of their fund/department. 2024 does present some unique challenges with rising cost of goods and services, uncertain economy, and to a degree an unknown city landscape. Some questions that that might be out there that we aren't able to answer at this time. I'm going to jump in that staff has worked hard with this, budgeted aggressively to accomplish the council's goals. That's our goal throughout the whole process. Even though the deficits have been budgeted in some funds, we recognize that we do feel confident in the fund balance for next year. But we also acknowledge that there are some challenges, revenue challenges going forward past that we have questions. One, I think the last two strategic plans, or the plan and the update have talked about the use tax. The sales tax helped quite a bit. That'll help with the Parks and Rec. But the use tax, and then going forward, we're looking to have the stormwater master plan presented this fall. There's options there as far as revenue too to assist with that. We don't collect a utility fee for stormwater right now. Couple things, or I say a couple. We always keep an eye on the state legislature. There's some attempts right now to erode tax base. Senate Bill 190 is it's being discussed, and an attempt to basically put a freeze on senior property taxes. But it's figuring out how it's to be done. Those are things that we don't have a good solid impact, but we're trying to work with the county on that to see how that'll affect. So I want to start out with doom and gloom because it's a good budget. There's a lot that's accomplished in here, but I also, it's in your face that there's some deficits in there when you look through it. So we wanted to get to that right off the bat. That we're more, how do I put it? We're how do we phrase it, Nick? We're more confident in our expenses. Our revenues are conservative. We think the deficits are going to be less. I'm not going to tell you they will, but fairly confident that those won't be they won't be as big as what we're showing. But we're more conservative on our revenues than we are with the spending. We have better data on the spending, but again, I want to thank staff. It's been they took on a lot. They've done a good job budgeting, and with that, I think I'll go ahead and hand it off because I feel like I'm starting to ramble. I think
Who we handed it to? There we go, Nick. There we go. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I'm going to just give you a quick overview of what you're going to hear tonight, and very quick recap of what we talked about on the 18th. So, as City Administrator noted, we are very aggressive on our expenditures and very conservative on our revenues as we go through these different funds, different departments. When we worked on putting this budget together, that's how we've budgeted. We look at, what kind of the worst case scenarios are in the expense side, and we want to make sure that we're handling that. And I don't know if you've noticed over, the course of this year, we've had several budget amendments from inflationary factors. That's incorporated in this budget. And so those are things that, as departments talk about the different expenses, and they'll be highlighting 3 to 5 areas when they come up and talk about their budgets. Those are the things that have been kind of top of mind as we've been putting the budget together. And historically, we have always been very conservative on the revenue side. As the city administrator noted, there are a lot of factors that are always keeping their eye on local revenue specifically, and so we take that into account when we put together the budget. But tonight, we have received a couple questions specifically about the deficit. We'll get some further information on that. The hope is that after tonight, after questions have been asked, within the next few days, we'll get responses out to that. We also have a couple formatting things, one or two areas that we need to update in the budget that we'll have before we get to the next meeting. So you will see that in the next few days. Our next step after this is possible adoption. It could be up on September 5th, which would be the next meeting. That will likely happen before we get our property tax valuations from the county. We'll get that at the beginning of September, and that will trigger a process that we'll have to quickly get that turned over to the state auditor's office. And then after that, we'll have to have a 7-day notice period. And depending on the timing of that, which is always tricky around this time of year, we should have that by the September 19th agenda. If not, we may have to call a special meeting because we do have to turn that around to the county. But we try and work diligently and quickly when we get that information to review it, make sure it's good, and then get it turned around so we can get the levy approved. And really, that's a very administrative piece that we do, and it's very formulaic from the state and the county perspective. So tonight, we're going to be walking through both departments and some of our special revenue funds. We're going to start off tonight with kind of our culture and recreation departments, and so we have Lori Mangan from the library who's going to talk about what's going on there.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me okay? Okay. So I'm Lori Mangan. I'm with the North Kansas City Public Library. So just going over our budget for the next year. In our operating budget, the only change to that was an increase in salaries of up to 6%. We bumped that up just a little bit from what we had done previously in order to stay comparable to the larger library systems around us, so we're not losing our staff to those. But that's the only change to our operating budget. Otherwise, it's the same as it was last year. As far as the capital projects go, we are taking some money out of our reserve fund for those. The one I have, there's two. There is a lighting replacement project. The main area of the library has fluorescent lighting at the very top. I don't know how many feet in the air that is. It's like they have to rent a crane. So it's very high up. So those are, from what I understand from Public Works, getting harder and harder to replace. They're getting more expensive, and they're not very energy efficient. So we would like to, we're going to do a project where we replace those fixtures with LED fixtures. So that way Public Works won't need to rent a crane and do that each year. They should be good for 10 years. So that's kind of a big project. And then the other one is just remodeling of all the public restrooms in the library. Those are all original to when the extension or the addition was built in 2001. So they're just kind of in need of updating. So those are the two projects that we have. And I believe that, is tuck pointing still on there? And there's a tuck pointing and exterior repair project that's in there as well. That's just some kind of maintenance work on the building. So that's our budget for next year.
All right, questions for library?
Just across the board for everybody, anybody doing lighting replacements, I'm hoping you're going through the utility offers rebates for LED replacements for anybody that's still using T8s and T5s and all of the antiquated equipment. But it's just something to keep in mind because that will help with the budget, extend it quite a bit. Just need thumbs up and yeah, got you.
I'm relying heavily on those that know more about
Awesome.
lighting.
Yeah, that's it.
Fantastic. Thank you. All right.
Next up, Victoria with the Parks and Recreation Department will come up and give some highlights.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We too, our expenditures this year are basically the same. Salaries have increased due to the compensation study that we did. A couple of the other line items that'll be increasing this year are our special events budget, our programming budget, and our PR budget. So not extensively, but just a little bit because we're doing some new events that we're venturing into. But on our revenue side, October 1st, we start receiving our sales tax revenue. So again, thank you very much for helping to support that. And as far as capital improvement projects, we have the basketball courts that we will also build. So, basketball court, just one. But, any questions?
Any question? Parks and Rec? No? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
That was it. Here we go. Next up.
The next department that we will highlight is administration, and Kim will be talking about that.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll be doing both administration and municipal court, so I'll kind of flow one into the other, but please feel free to stop me with any questions you may have. So administration includes support for general administration, elected officials, city clerk, HR, finance, IT, and legal. The budget includes additional funding for document scanning and traveling, training, dues for both elected and staff, as well as boards and commissions. The city also went out for bid for audit services. We received 3 bids, all exceeding prior years. Again, because some of the Gatsby requirements, the auditing services become more complicated, as well as not as many firms kind of operate within that municipal space anymore, so kind of less competition, less people that actually do it, higher requirements, which kind of drives up the price for this particular service. This is something that is required to have an outside agency do, which is a budget best practice, is to have an outside firm audit your books. So it includes implementation of 2 government accounting standards for leases and software. Again, these are 2 new requirements that go into place over this next contract period. For budget services, it's a Gatsby requirement. I'm happy to go into detail, but I doubt anybody here would like to listen to that. So this budget kind of reflects that. Aside from that, it pretty much stays about the way it is without any new projects with an administration. Do you have any questions about the administration's budget?
Any questions?
No? Okay, I'll flow into municipal court. Municipal court does have a couple of new additions. With the Senate Bill 5 and Supreme Court Rule 37, this is kind of an ongoing implementation, as well as how it is being implemented both through the courts and the legislation. We now are required to have a new part-time position called the prosecutor clerk. And again, what that does is it's actually an outfall from Ferguson and some of the events that came out of that particular incident here in the state of Missouri between municipal court and administration. So one of the things is to further separate some of those duties from administration and the court operations. Again, those are supposed to be 2 separate branches of governance. The prosecutor clerk will help separate some of those duties and create definition between those 2 organizations. And another one would be contract employee for a public defender. Currently, we don't have that as a separate contracted position. It's more kind of an ad hoc. With our new judge, he would like to kind of clean that up and make that a true public defender position. And that would bring us more in line with the true spirit of the state regulations. Do you have any questions about the municipal court budget in those 2 positions?
On we go.
No? Okay. I will hand it over then to Chief Hargis with Fire.
Now we gotta slow it down here. Last year, I think he had a $70 million training budget line item here. I checked this one twice.
I moved that to the salary line this time.
So,
Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. You've seen our budget here. I'm just going to highlight a couple of our things that went up kind of considerably this year that we raised. One is first aid supplies. That's actually our EMS supplies for the ambulance. Our cost of those supplies has drastically increased over the last year and a half, and we're also running a significant number more calls, so we're using more now as well. So we bumped that budget up. We've had to amend this year's because we went over already, so we're trying to anticipate that for next year. And it's the same with our vehicle maintenance and our equipment maintenance. The cost on those have almost doubled in the last couple of years. The parts cost is like sky high, and all the maintenance costs have increased as well. So we've seen significant increases in those to try to capture those costs this year. And if you have any other questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
any fire questions? Nope. All right, on we go.
Next up is Police Department.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before I get started tonight, I'd just like to recognize some of the staff in the room tonight, Major Mark Smith, Sergeant Aaron Basor, and Sergeant Justin Holm, and they are here exclusively for my short-term memory problems, so they'll help out as needed. So for our, I didn't see Major Bagley step in either, so sorry, Jim. So a few general fund notes that I want to just bring to your attention is we are increasing our investigation operation line by $12,500. That is more of just a movement of funds that have already been expensed in other lines. It is for software that's exclusively used by the investigations unit. So it typically had been paid out of our computer operations line, but because it is an exclusive product for investigations, we felt like it more aptly sits within that line. So we moved the $12,500 for that's our fees for ETAC, which is Emerging Threat Analysis Center, some weird acronym that we pay into. Then we get a lot of discounted rates for services because we pay for it as a group. Detention supplies up $62,000. As you remember earlier this year, we came to you for a budget amendment because we were arresting a lot of people and they were staying in jail longer, and those fees went up at the beginning of the year. So we've adjusted that line accordingly for next year. What you will see in the probably at the end of the year projections is almost as soon as we asked you for that extra money, Clay County closed detention to municipal prisoners again and has been closed most of the summer and will be closed probably through the end of this fiscal year. So the budget amendment that we asked you for last year, it will probably go unspent, but we'll need to account for that for next year. Animal control is up $19,500. This is a line that has historically been at or over budget year after year after year. This year is no exception. Our shelter has been at capacity almost all year long, which means increased cost to feed and care. Veterinary care has gone up like everything else has, so that's why we've asked for some more money there. Then I'll move on to a couple items for our capital line. Vehicles, as we all know, fleet is crazy out of control. Prices are a little bit tricky. What I do have is a little clerical note here because we did have money funded for next fiscal year for the truck, which we amended the budget, I believe, last meeting for, so we could get it bought in the window. So we'll be pulling that money back out of this request. So that request will go from $277,000 down to $234,000 when the final budget is presented to you. And then we're looking to do a full-on uniform switch with some money. As you know, we've looked like this for a number of years. We'll probably still look like this, but the vendor that we've been using has kind of come out of favor for us with wear issues and longevity issues with the uniforms. So we've been wear testing several different uniforms over the last 9 to 12 months and have found a vendor that we think is going to work out better for us. But it does, even though they're the same basic color, they are different. A navy blue from one vendor is different than a navy blue from another vendor. So we don't want to mismatch everything up. We want to look professional. And so we're asking for money to just do a full-on uniform switch next year. And that would also include new outer carriers. The officers will wear the outer carrier load-bearing vest instead of the concealable armor like I'm wearing. We have a lot of different variations of that in play right now, and I'd like to get it to look like one. So it is, by definition, a uniform. So happy to answer any other questions about any of our other projects or line items.
You didn't want council to pick your future style?
Not you, sir.
There we go. Public Works. On we go.
Can we jump into it?
That would have been fun, though.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The Public Works Department has 4 main divisions, so I'm going to step through those 4 and just highlight a few projects from each one. The first one is Buildings and Grounds. 2 of the items I wanted to touch on there was the introduction of green infrastructure and native gardens line item. Let me back up. I'm sorry. I'm going to just jump right into the capital budgeting and save any questions for operations. There's a lot of line items, 85 in just capital, so if there's any budget operating expenditures, please let me know. So as I said, green infrastructure and native gardens and buildings and grounds just comes out of the strategic planning sessions that we had with council and just some different goals going forward. Something else from that was electric vehicle infrastructure. We started this program last year, starting to retrofit some of our buildings to handle capacity loads for charging electric cars in our fleet. And this is just a continuation of that. Jumping into transportation, first thing we're looking at is one of the things is alley repairs. So historically, for the last 3 years, we've had a program for replacing concrete in the Northgate alleys, and we want to expand that this year to include alleys across the city. We're looking at this as kind of a new program to just kind of keep maintenance of those very necessary facilities up to speed. Another item in transportation is riverboat drive bridges. So every 2 years we do a bridge inspection of those large overpass style bridges on Riverboat Drive, and we're anticipating this year maybe having some information come back from the engineer that we might need to look at resurfacing or just some minor concrete repairs. So we would, of course, work with Harrah's and kind of figure out how that would work out, but we want to include that in this year's budget. Another item that's kind of neat is a really cool program that we do downtown. Dwayne Marusars has kept this up for a long time. There's about 110 individual little trash cans downtown that you probably see in the downtown streetscape. They extend over to the high school. Dwayne's crew goes around and empties those and basically facilitates that trash collection. He's done that for a long time. He thinks that adding a mini trash compactor vehicle would help save a lot of effort in doing that and allow us to be more efficient. We could actually take that right to the landfill as opposed to utilizing our dumpsters throughout the city. So that's kind of an item that he's pretty excited about. Also in transportation is the annual tree planting program. We kept the level at 100,000, which was raised by council last year. We've had really good luck increasing the tree sizes this year, and then definitely a more robust tree program. Switching from that into water, kind of on the upcoming this next year will be a lot of diving into the lead and copper inventory plan. So water regulations across the country are starting to look at where we might have lead service lines. We're going to start diving into that this year. By October of 2024, we need to have a program put together that has identified all lead, potential lead connections in the city, and be submitting that to DNR and EPA. So there's some costs associated with that when it comes to potholing, basically digging small holes around different areas in the city to inspect the water mains without digging them all the way up. So that's something, that inventory plan and that actual physical work of doing public outreach and investigating our system is included in this year's budget. Water also has a lot of the vehicle replacements that we targeted this year, but as we've brought to council before, conversations about switching to electric vehicles and just riding the wave of, as Kevin was saying, vehicle prices and vehicle uncertainty in the market. The trucks that we had identified and were looking at just dropped $10,000 about a month ago, so we're glad we waited. But going forward, we're still going to be looking at those Ford Lightning trucks for replacements, and again, continuing to switch our fleet into an electric prepared fleet. And then jumping into the last one here, water pollution control. This item, or this budget has a lot to do with the storm and sanitary budgets. We always budget our $400,000 for storm and sanitary line repairs, $150,000 for pump station repairs. You know, there's a lot of aging infrastructure in the city, and this is kind of the fund that helps us support those replacements. We've also broken out this year, though, a lot of specific projects like a 15th and Atlantic inflow and infiltration. So as this last year's progressed, we've identified different locations where instead of having kind of a general, blanket approach to it, we've actually pinpointed specific locations where we can do smaller projects. With that, I know, sorry, that was a lot, but if you have any questions on any of these things, please.
I'm going to ask you one specific one here. I believe it was in our strategic plan as well. We talked about studying the expansion of EV charging stations. Is there any money allocated for a study or building?
We're actually still hoping to get that out this year, so it wouldn't be shown in this year's budget. We're preparing the contract to send that out, so that, would probably average that around $50,000, but that's something we're preparing. If that needs to transfer into next year, that's something Nick and I would have to work on, moving that from here to there. But to capture some of the IIJA funds and carbon reduction funds, we're hoping to actually still not complete, but initially start.
And that would be
this year.
the study itself.
Correct.
I guess further to that, what about actually building out that infrastructure? Any sort of number you believe we should plug in related to that?
The plan would kind of identify what we would need to program for that, and then balancing that with any kind of grants that we would go after. So that would probably end up being a budget amendment in next year's budget. Without the plan currently in place, we don't really know how we'd identify. There's a lot of questions about locations, level 2, level 4, or I'm sorry, level 3 chargers. What's the most appropriate direction to go with that? Also, the infrastructure in the city itself. If we identify some of our public parking locations, they might not be adjacent to enough voltage to get to that location. So there's a lot of components there that the plan will fish out.
A lot of ways to go on that, yep.
But going back to the buildings and grounds, though, that I should have clarified, that infrastructure is specifically for city buildings.
Yeah. No, that's why. Yeah, I was asking. Councilmember Saper.
Regarding trees, we have an aging forest, and some of them diseased, and they're coming down, and they're being replaced. But we need to care for the trees that we have and can maintain. And I know we use contract forestry services. Has there been any discussion of possibility of having a city forester? And if so, and if that's a feasible alternative, I would like to see an increase in the tree budget beyond new plantings to cover care for the trees and forests that we currently have. I was thinking in terms of maybe $50,000 increase in that. Could you bring forth some information in the next couple of weeks regarding the hiring of a city forester?
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And just to dovetail off that, I'm glad you brought that up because there's an operations component there that I wanted to touch on. Our regular budget in operations for tree maintenance is about $151,000. That was increased last year, or I'm sorry, the year before that, from 130 to 150 to basically account for the emerald ash borer treatments. In the operation budget this year, we're going to increase it again by 30,000 up to 180. That's again our 3-year cycle of treating the emerald ash borer trees. So that has increased. From the bounce and balance, actually, though, we did have conversations with a few people about the same item about tree maintenance, and we're actually wanting to target increasing that by 50,000. And that would be, though, for that line item specifically goes for mainly the contractors. So adding a city position, that would be a conversation we'd have to have for a different line. But we could also look at, and I'll bring this information back, we could also look at maybe training one of our in-house employees right now to become that forester.
Have we begun the tree inventory already? Has that started now?
That is still something we would like to accomplish this year. So that is a budget item I'm looking to bring back still this fiscal year. We'll see. Maybe it's going to be pushed to the
I feel like you're getting the most questions here.
No, it's okay. No, it's all right.
Another one, I guess, then related to last year, we upped the budget related to, and I can't remember the specific line item, but sidewalk and 88 ramp repair, essentially. Did we utilize all of that budget this year?
Yes, that and maybe and then some. But we, if you look in that falls into the transportation budget. So we did leave that as the increased line, which is 430,000, as you said.
That was what we increased to last year.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It went from, I believe it was 280 before up to 430.
Curb, sidewalks, and drainage improvements. There we go. Is that sufficient to continue tackling those sort of items?
We think so. When it comes to that specific line item, that is kind of the ones we, as they come up throughout the year, different maintenance activities. What we did this year to help supplement that is add additional projects broken out from that. So there's actually specific projects in the budget, the 10th Avenue streetscape improvements, 16th Avenue ADA improvements.
Got it.
And then the 18th Avenue in Buchanan, there's a desire to add a stretch of sidewalk there where there's been a gap for a long time. So there's kind of some individual specific projects called out, but still leaving that 430 for just miscellaneous projects.
All right. I believe we will, no, Councilmember Fitzgerald.
Just two quick comments. First, I want to express some support for Mr. Saper's thought of getting some additional information on kind of getting caught up on the tree trimming to take care of all the current problem trees. And then just maybe that same vein of additional projects to possibly look into. I'm not sure if this would be public development or, public works or community development, but I was curious on the cost and maybe a potential budget thing, if there's a budget amendment, if there's interest, but on extending the bike lane protective barriers down Armour towards I-35 where there aren't any currently. I've just continued to see cars driving in there and heard feedback from residents too.
That's definitely something Shu and I would both work on. There is a current study right now for, it's called the East-West Connectivity Study, which talks about extending the bike infrastructure down past I-35. But that would be something, we would have to.
I'll kind of chime in. This is part of our, I'm not sure if you remember Shu's update on this particular item, but the I-29 Pell study, the widening, how MoDOT is looking at widening that particular piece of interstate through pretty much the entirety of North Kansas City, that would impact kind of the east-west study and the drawings and renderings that we saw then, because those lanes would bump out and ramps would have to move. So it is something that we are talking with MoDOT. They are very aware that we would like there to be connectivity underneath the I-29, 35. Some of the challenges, they don't have clarity on what that span of highway looks like over the next couple of years. So it's something that we're just going to have to continue to meet with them. Again, that is their right of way. It is their land. It's our desire that we're trying to have some of our safety initiatives kind of on their pieces of land, but ultimately we're kind of we're almost in the begging component of that because we don't own and operate that particular piece of land.
And just for some clarification, I'd be interested too in I guess, got my directions turned around, but it's on the part of Armour Road that's ours where the bike lanes have already been painted, just there's no barriers there. I think that might be even before you get to MoDOT territory.
Oh, are you talking
I
about
gotcha,
the
yeah.
low barriers?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Concrete
the
walls.
cement things.
It would be so helpful to have a map.
Yes, no, we can definitely look into, cost associated with extending those out,
Okay, thank you.
All right, further questions for Public Works? None this evening. There we go. Thank you.
Next up is community development.
I can't reach this microphone. All right, good evening, Mayor and City Council members. It's a pleasure to represent community development in front of you for our budget for this year. We did not have quite a lot of change for our operating budget, except that we are requesting to add a position for our department. And I've mentioned this before, and I would like to refresh everybody's memory why we're adding this position. So back when we were talking about adopting the ordinance for short-term rental, we talked about we need extra staff to enforce that, to deal with the application, and down the road, the complaints and inspection and all of that. And also, I'd like to remind everybody that we currently have about 1,000 rental units that are going through our annual inspection. And for the next 2 to 5 years, we'll add another 1,300 rental units. And I just this is freshly out of the oven, just baked. I was looking at the number, I was surprised. I was like, yeah, we have doubling the amount of rental units, which will require annual inspection down the road. So this is why we're needing a new position, and this position will be an entry level, mostly focusing on neighborhood services. And down the road, if we have more development, and we probably will look into those, but this is what we're asking for now. With that said, the rest of our operating budget remains generally the same. So for our capital improvement projects, I'd like to mention a couple over here. One of them is our shared use path along Howell, going from 32nd Avenue to Armour Road. that is being discussed on our priority list when we were reprioritizing our bike infrastructure due to the construction and the studies that MoDOT is working on right now. I would like to mention about the Armour Road later on as well. But for Howell Street, this 10-foot wide shared use path will include ADA ramps, marking, signage, and potentially any reconfiguration for any on-street parking along that street as well. There are definitely potholes and cracks, and we need to restripe those parking area, particularly along the Macon Park over there. So we'll look into all of that. And then the next project we're talking about is our sustainability plan. This is a new item. It is very fresh, and it's a new concept for North Kansas City. But generally what we're doing over here is we want to take a look into our stormwater, water, sewer, our economic development, land use, and our future development all together through a sustainability lens. We want to understand how could we had this conversation before, increase artificial canopies and how that's going to be addressed and to further remediate the urban heat island. So that conversation started this thought and inspired me, maybe we should take a look at a sustainability plan. Our neighboring municipalities, a lot of them do have a sustainability manager or environmental manager generally works on this particular type of topic. And we'll work closely with Anthony definitely to take a look at the tree inventory, where they are, what conditions they are. Not all the trees will provide a good shade and a good canopies for such use. So through this plan, we believe we will have a better understanding and a guidance for us down the road where the development is going to be. Maybe will involve some policy changes or code changes that can further reach our goals. And other than that, there's a good news for Liz tonight. We're going to look at the updating our parking management plan again. Our current parking management plan was done in 2018, and it was done in-house. It was a great plan, it has a good framework. However, a lot of those data were not completed, was not sufficient enough for our today and for our rapid growth. So we want to take a look into that again and try to understand where we are in the parking inventory, especially after we have so many developments, and that can guide our future development better. So these are the three capital improvement projects I'd like to mention. And down the road, we can definitely take a look at extending the protected bike lanes, those lower concrete walls and barriers, over to where the MoDOT right-of-way stops. And then, just so you all know, that the shared use path being down through the east-west connection study, we're currently put that on the placeholder just because of the impact from the PEL study. With that said, any question for me?
Any questions? Any questions? Nope.
Oh, I'm surprised.
Thank you.
All right, have a great day.
We got him out of the way with Anthony. Next up is
Economic development.
Back
Here we
to
go.
me.
Kim will handle that.
So this is specifically for the economic development. It's located on page 101. There really isn't much substantial change to this section aside from a proposed increase for professional services. Again, those are outside professionals that help us with either accounting, financial review, outside legal advice. So those are professionals that we hire since we don't have the staff capability, and or it is actually better for us to have an outside voice kind of review these items on the city's behalf. Happy to answer any questions if you'd like.
on we go.
Next up is interdepartmental, and I'm going to talk about that. And this really kind of transitions from our department-specific conversation to talking about some of our special revenue funds. Interdepartmental is actually budgeted in the general fund, and it includes funding for citywide services that don't fit into one department or one function. So a couple highlights from this budget. It does include additional support for tuition reimbursement and wellness. And one of the other goals that we had in this budget was to look at our training. You know, we're entering kind of a more normal period post COVID. And one of the things that we talked about is increasing our training and travel budgets, and tuition reimbursement falls into that in terms of supporting employees that want to go out and get additional education. We have adjusted some funding for the NKC Healthy Citizen Initiative to reflect kind of the current usage now that we're about a year plus into that program. So we did drop that budget a little bit, but it's based on what the current usage is of that program. So that went from $50,000 to $30,000. We've had what I kind of consider a legacy line item for our sick and vacation payout. That was more related to a program that was done about 10 years ago. And that's when, pardon me, an employee retires. There is a payout that goes with that. We have started pulling that out of department budgets because they're not huge line item expenses, and it just fits and flows better within the individual department budgets. So we have reduced that. One of the other pieces that has increased, and that is a specific line item we call other services. That is where we've been budgeting our assistance for cold weather assistance. So we have increased that amount to reflect what we've been spending in that over the last few years as that program is ramped up. So we've included additional funding for that.
Let me, on that point,
Yep.
is it time to create an additional line item for that rather than just grouping it into other?
We could absolutely do that because that other services line item does encompass a lot of, we've put some citywide training initiatives in there before. So when we.
I never like
Yeah.
grouping too many things when it gets
Absolutely.
too big and other,
Yeah.
at some point it just makes sense to split that off into its own
We can absolutely
budget
do that.
line, just for clarity.
Can I ask a follow-up clarification question on
Yeah.
that particular item? Would you like us to pursue a contract for services for a 12-month period for that particular service? Right now, it's
And
kind
we
of.
discussed that before.
We
Rita
we
presented
did.
that, and we did
and
not
we were going
actually.
to kind of punt it to right now.
Oh, well, we are here. All right. That was for the year-round, so the shortest, so Northland Assistance Center could basically do what they do in the winter now, which is help put people in hotels during the coldest nights. This would allow her to use that resource all year round for a multitude of issues, really. There we go. Is that a comment, or is that a?
I was just going to say,
That's
I
more
would be in support of that, of
Okay.
having a year-round contract. I think especially with, I think there are plenty of other circumstances throughout the year that she has used those funds for.
Thank you for the comments on this.
Could we perhaps get some guidance on the dollar value you were considering?
What is it currently? I guess I don't see.
I believe we were at, I actually believe it's right. I think it's 40,000, and I will definitely
and that
get
was just
clarification on that.
for
And that's
winter.
Yes, and that was based off of, we did 2 amendments last year, or this current year, I believe, for that. I believe it started out at 20, and then we are 10, and we've moved it up.
Okay. Like auction style here. What do we have a number? Councilmember Toll.
I agree that there's stuff that you could spend the money on, but I was one of them that hesitated the last time when we talked about it, because the purpose of doing the cold weather was that we have public places for people to go during the summer when it's the most dangerous during the day. And in the winter, when it's the most dangerous overnight, we needed a safe place for people to go when all the shelters were full and no longer accepting anybody. So I think we would have to have a deeper discussion before we extended that to a 12-year program, because that's really outside of what we had originally, the scope of what we had originally discussed. And you would want to have a bigger discussion on what you were using public funds to support.
Other comments on that? So, I mean, for now, obviously, our ultimate target is just to really get a number. So do you just want to stick with 40 for now, then? Stick with 40, have that conversation here soon, and see what that looks like as a year-long contract. 40, 40, 40, 40. 40 it is. And I believe that is, oh, was there more on this? Sorry, I cut you off at other.
No, the only other thing I was going to mention on interdepartmental is we've now seen multiple years with double-digit increases in our general liability insurance, and so that does continue with the 2024 budget. Other than that, we do budget our citywide utilities, and we've historically budgeted those pretty high, so we've not made any adjustments to those line items outside of our annual trash contract, which does go up, I believe, 2% every year.
Thank you. I'm going to ask one question really to minor home, well, probably I have several. Minor home repair, have we exhausted that entire budget for last year?
No, we still have a balance in that particular line item.
Okay, thank you. There we go, we'll keep it at 1. Next,
I will make just a quick note that we do not know how the new Evergy policy is going to impact the city. So I'm just kind of putting that out there. That's one of the things on our radar. I think we as a state, we as all consumers of Evergy don't have a great understanding of how their new policy of timed rates will impact us as just regular individual homeowners, as well as for this organization. So I did just want to kind of bring that up. It's something that's on our radar. We really don't know how that will impact our expenditures. I did want to say that when Nick had mentioned our utilities.
all right, we're going to, gaming, convention, tourism, where are we going?
Convention and tourism is next, and actually, I think Kim is going to handle the next 3.
Close us out here.
So convention and tourism is on page 125 if you are following along with the printed version. So one of the things that we have budgeted, and just due to staff capacity, haven't had the ability to kind of really pursue, it is in the strategic plan, is the new marketing program. So that is again included in this particular budget. I do hope to be able to bring something and have some great conversations of what that looks like in the coming budget. I do have a question for you kind of on an earlier topic. We have not, when we kind of assembled this budget, the River North NKC Tober event wasn't something we were aware of. You did support it for the current operational year. Would you like us to add that to this proposed budget, that $20,000 support for a next year October event?
We got all kinds of hands there. Councilmember Saper. Councilmember Phil.
I just had a question about when we look at the purpose and the goals. The goal is not to make money, correct? And the goal wouldn't be in the future to make money. It would be to bring people in. So how, if we wanted to look to see whether or not this event was successful, we'd have to decide how we're gonna look at that ahead of time. So how are we gonna look at that? Is it gonna be ticket sales? Is it gonna be reports from surrounding businesses on revenue? Like, how are we going to judge whether this was a good investment of $20,000?
Absolutely. So within the contracted services is a reporting mandate. So we will be getting a report, just like the Convention and Tourism grant, the smaller grant programs, where we get an understanding of what did attendance look like? Was there a positive net gain within those businesses? Did they feel like it was a success to be able to pursue that workload again for the next year? So that is something that we will get as an after-event report that will be submitted to the governing body. So if you would like to perhaps wait, and if it's successful, we can come back with a budget amendment, just like we did this current year.
So I heard you say ticket sales and then how businesses feel that it impacted them.
They're going to be tracking their sales. So as Sean kind of mentioned, that their vendors will be applying the city's sales tax. So we would be able to at least see some tangential
there was there.
information. In the event world, though, you really need to look at year 3. Year 1 is always kind of a struggle. You're trying to get something off the ground. Year 2, you're starting to get something. Year 3 is where you really start to see if an event that brings outside tourists into a community. Year 3 is really kind of a best practice hallmark year on if it's deemed a success. I mean, I hate to say that, but year 1 is always kind of a rough go on any new event.
So you would recommend that we back this for 3 years and then evaluate its effectiveness?
I don't think you have to put it within this budget. I do think that you should kind of think a little long-term on this particular event. I think that the River North team, we could ask them to come in and do a live report if the governing body would like to see it, versus just kind of like an attachment onto an agenda. Of course, they're going to have lessons learned, as with any first-year event. But that could be something that if the governing body would like to see kind of a live report versus a written report from River North, to see if they would like to amend the budget for the 24 NKC Tober event.
I fully support it. If you think it takes 3 years for that to take hold, then I would support putting it in the budget for next year. I just wanted to have a clear understanding of what the benchmark for success was, so.
I mean, we don't, I mean, obviously it doesn't obligate us to spend it either. It just goes ahead and plugs it in the likely scenario that we do end up funding it again. That way it's already budgeted.
It would require another contract for services before any dollar was expended.
Councilmember Perez and Councilmember Clark.
I would prefer to just do the 1 year and then get a report for the pros and cons to see how it went successfully, or if there were a lot of problems, or I would just prefer to do the 1 year first. So.
I think given the feedback, I think what we're trying to get at is it's good to put the line item in because it is something we approve. So if we put the line item in, it's not a surprise to the budget next year. If we say, wow, it was a success, we don't have to amend it. It's already there. If it wasn't a success, we don't necessarily have to approve to spend that money again. So I'm for putting it in the budget to be sort of preemptively prepared and backing them up and saying, yeah, it'll be a success.
All right, who's going to break this tie? Councilmember Todd? There we go.
I'm in favor of adding it as a line item. Having participated in many annual events, I definitely agree with that. It takes time. And I think putting it in as a line item, it doesn't guarantee them the money. And it also encourages them not to give up when challenges come, as I know they will. And so that at least will give them some encouragement to continue and tweak and make it even better the second year around.
All right. Council member, please.
Oh, I don't have much else to add that hasn't been said yet, but I'm fine with including it in the budget. Don't want to, obviously not promising we're going to fund it next year, but might as well have it in there for planning purposes, and we can see how year one goes and modify from there.
We will add it based on that. Thank you. Further?
Do you have any other questions for that particular fund? I'm going to hop, you guys are visiting with me for the next couple of funds.
I might just not be looking at the right page, but I saw the infrastructure line item is jumping by about $1 million from 2022 to 2023 in this fund. I was trying to understand what was driving that.
UN Convention Tourism.
Yeah.
We do expense some of the infrastructure out of this particular fund. So hang on, give me 1 second. I do believe that is expended out of this fund. However, it is programmed out of SHU's account.
Gotcha. That may have been why I wasn't seeing what that was connected to.
I think those were Armor Road. Armor Road Complete Streets is finalizing some things, plus we have some wayfinding. So there are just a couple, not legacy projects, but projects from prior years that are finally getting fully expensed. So.
Okay, so expended out of this fund and just showing up in a different fund in the capital outlay section.
Correct. This particular fund has kind of two uses that are approved within the state statutes. One of them is for infrastructure, specifically for visitors coming in infrastructure, which is kind of that wayfinding, as well as any road improvements to allow for increased traffic, as well as support to bring tourists into the city. It's kind of a two-note fund. I'll move on to kind of unless there's more questions, which I'm happy to answer. Move on now toward the two TIF funds. Those are separated out. That is a budget best practice. So I'll talk about the Northgate TIF fund. We are projecting flat revenue projections for this particular fund. There is some professional services within this particular line. One of the things that we're hoping to do in the next fiscal year is one final TIF amendment. The Bloom and the 23rd and Swift apartments, as well as the Bloom project, were not envisioned the last time we amended that TIF plan, so the financials are not trued up. One of the things we'd like to do is, now that we have a firm understanding of what all those parcels are and the agreements associated with it, just to do literally a math true up for that particular TIF plan. That way, if all goes well, it'll be the last time we amend that particular plan. The parcels within that area will begin to return to the taxing jurisdictions in 2027, and that TIF will retire in 2032. I do want to just kind of make sure everybody is aware that the city will start receiving less revenue in 2027, and we will not receive any revenue in that particular fund after 2032. These proceeds, because that project was front-loaded out of the gaming fund, they are actually transferred back to the gaming fund. So some of our conversations about making sure we are kind of really looking at that gaming fund the revenues coming in. That's kind of some of that conversation is beginning in 2027. Those revenues that are transferred back into that fund will begin to reduce, and they will stop altogether in 2032 from the Northgate TIF fund. So do you have any questions about the Northgate TIF fund? The One North, this fund, the city is not the benefactor for this particular TIF fund. This is more of a true pass-through account. So again, we do have it reflected in our books as a separate fund due to best practices. But this right here is, it's updated to reflect the new pilot fees, sales tax redirects, and the hotel motel redirects. But this right here is truly kind of an in and out fund. And now I'm going to, if there's no more questions, I'm going to kick it over to Nick.
I'm going to talk briefly about the American Rescue Plan Fund, which is on page 181 if you have a paper copy with you. Really, we've collected everything from the state. We've received both of our payments from the state plus 2 additional payments totaling about $10,000. So for the 2024 fiscal year, it includes a transfer of $200,000 that is for the Parks basketball court. So we transfer that to the Parks Department where they will expend that. This year we did do the public safety retention piece, so we're left with a balance of approximately $530,000 in that fund. So that will be something that we'll have additional conversation on throughout the next year. And that is the American Rescue Plan. I'm happy to answer any questions on that.
Any questions? Nope.
If not, we have 2 more funds that we're going to talk about. I'm going to start off with the Communications Fund, which is also the fiber network. As you know, we talked a little bit about that today. There are no significant changes in how we budget that. It is, from the city cash flow standpoint, it's supported by a transfer from the gaming fund. It has, on our side, we have a pretty good fund balance in that fund to support not just the deficit funding, but if there are any projects that go along with that, the city does share some of the responsibility for paying that. Plus, we also have an administrative fee that comes out of there. But there have been no significant changes in how we budget that fund, and if there are any changes to contract agreements in the future, we would reflect that in this budget. And then the last one that I will highlight is the Community Center Fund. Again, no significant changes into how we fund this. It is supported through the gaming fund transfer, and we do pay a management fee quarterly to them that is based on their revenue. We do budget. There's also if there's a deficit greater than $200,000, we do have an operating subsidy that we provide to them as well. We budget the full capacity on that every year, so we don't always hit our budget numbers there. But there have been no significant changes into how we budget the community center fund. It is primarily funded through gaming. We also do provide capital project support to them as well.
Thank you.
And that, completes
back to Mike here.
That completes everything, unless there's general questions that, that we can all.
I just want to touch on what you said at the very, very beginning, which is the deficit's going to jump out at you, and you're going to see the deficit. There's nothing that was set up here that I would say, oh, let's scrap that. But the general fund is anticipated to go down 20% over the course of the year, which is obviously not sustainable. So looking at long-term solutions, and if there are difficult decisions that need to be made, I think we need to start making those quickly. A 20% drop is significant. And then knowing that the water study is coming out, I mean, we all know that's going to be massive. So I am concerned. You said it would jump out at us. It did jump out at us. It's not like there's anything on the chopping block. You said that we can handle it this year. I believe that we can handle it this year, but it's not sustainable, so I am concerned about it.
Right, right. And as you said, we start thinking about it now of planning for the future. But yeah, just getting it out there. Thank you.
Other comments? All right, then with this, I will suggest that we leave 9.5 open. We go ahead and add it back as a discussion item. Budget review again on 9.5. That way people have more time to digest, review, maybe make any further suggestions, and then seek final approval on September 19th. Yeah, go ahead.
I would say, between now and the next meeting, any questions that come up, please get them to us so we can address them and get them back to you prior to that. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Further budget? Nope. Okay. With that, the next item is the amended consent agenda. I just want to remind everyone, because it's been a minute, we removed 10 and 11, and those will be handled as the next item after the consent agenda. We also removed 15 and 16, and we've already approved those. So is there a motion to approve the amended consent agenda?
I move to approve the amended consent agenda. And I also
there a
want to
second?
take a recess after
Is there a
this.
second?
Second.
All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. With that, we will take a brief recess and come back and start with items number 10 and 11. I don't know. Random noise. Random noise. Oh. All right. We are back in session. And now he turned the broadcast on again. There you got me. But we are back in session with item number, we have a clerk as well and everyone else, right? Okay, yes. Item number, help me out, 10, right?
Correct.
Number 10, contract for professional services with WSKF for Public Safety Memorial, resolution number 23056. Anthony, Councilmember Safer.
Yes, actually 10 and 11 go together. But the numbers that have come up of the total cost for this are really quite shocking to me. And to probably most of the people who have been involved in the project as well. I'm sure they are. So I think that's why we need to actually have some explanation of what these costs are and how it came about. And in some ways, I'd like to go to number 11 first, and to the total cost of the Public Safety Memorial, which is coming in at $500,000. $500,000 is a lot of money. And I think far more than most of us expected at the time that we unanimously approved going forward with this. So we need to have an explanation so people know what's involved and what happened. And I would like to ask our Chief of Police to give us some of that background.
Certainly. Thank you. Yes, we all were shocked when we got this number. I don't build things. I do cop stuff, right? I have no idea what type of cost goes into projects like this. Honestly, when I first presented the numbers with Anthony, he's like, yeah, okay, sounds reasonable. But this number is 30% less than the first cost estimate that we had. So we've already realized some savings, and that came from consulting with a local business that specializes in this type of work, who suggested some different process changes that would be cheaper for us to try to build this thing. But specifically to your project, some of the cost estimates provided by WSKF are $300,000 of that $496,000 is in basically supplies and materials to do the work. The majority of that, 50% of that, is metal work, $152,000 in metal work. And if you recall from the design, this is a pretty intricate piece that both curves, moves upward, and kind of has an angle. And so there's a metal top cap to each side that has to flow with that to curve around, come up, spin up, and then go straight up in the air like the design has for it. So it's a pretty unique piece. We have another business here in North Kansas City that can specialize in that type of work, and may be able to provide us with some cost savings through other consultations and design. But we wanted to make sure that we had the full cost out here up front, for just in case we had to pay. We were paying full price, basically. Also included is plumbing, $20,000, $34,000 in electrical, $89,000 in masonry, which is granite, basically. That's where the majority of that savings, that 30% drop, came from. The original design was for concrete and then granite veneer panels, and the suggestion was go full slab granite. It'd be a lot cheaper. Seems weird to think that, but apparently it is. And then some concrete work for the base and other site work is the remaining $100,000 from that $300,000. Insurance, contingencies, all that stuff that goes into any type of a project. So happy to answer any other questions.
Councilmember Tull. Oh, sorry. Yeah, totally, Clark.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. So yes? Okay.
Same time.
So in our discussions that we had previously leading up to this, it had been discussed that there were businesses and other entities that wanted to make donations, is how I remembered it. So I called and spoke to Kim earlier today to go over that with her. And I'm kind of looking at this as, and I told you I would ask you again, so jump in at any time, as kind of the parks project that we had where you had to budget for the full amount, and then we had applied for 2 different grants, and we were anticipating getting at least one of those grants, but we had to budget for the whole thing. So in budgeting the 500,000 to make sure that we have it covered, are we then going to pursue some of the donations from private entities to help fund it? Is that part of the plan?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, it is. You're correct. We've discussed this plan at a couple different opportunities where some local businesses were present. A few have stepped forward, our architect, and we support that. Not ready to name those people yet. We don't feel it's appropriate yet till we get the bids out and the specifications out and all that stuff. But we do feel like, I couldn't put a number on it, but we do feel like that there will be some decent cost savings from businesses either providing materials or labor at a reduced cost as an in-kind service for the value of the project to the betterment of the community.
So the natural follow-up question to that would be, does it make more sense to do it this way, which it sounds like it does, because donations could be in the form of money or services or many different things, or does it make more sense to do some of the funding first from private and then do the budget amendment? I would be in favor of doing the full 500,000 now so that you had our support and you could go out and get any private support that was available, but I would like to hear your thoughts.
I think my thoughts on that would be, this allows us to move forward, take a step forward now and start that process and figure out who's coming to the table. I think if we did it the other way around, it might be more difficult. It might lead to people coming in late and realizing that they wanted to have a part in it and didn't get a chance to because everything would have been finalized then at that point. This gives us the opportunity to say, here's the project. If you have services, professional skills that could help out with it, then by all means, let's talk. But by all means, we want to make sure that we fund the project in case we have none of that also.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Thank you.
Councilmember Clark.
It was all covered. I was just going to reiterate, I remember it being kind of based on people volunteering or donating, and everything was going to be kind of community come together. Who can we tap to say, let's make this project happen? So I was equally shocked by a $500,000 kind of sticker to say in addition, but then I understood, that it could be a line item where you get the ball rolling and try to make things happen. So I support it.
Councilmember Saper.
And I would just like to once again make a plea that if one thing we learned during COVID and from COVID is that we have all kinds of heroes in our city government, do all kinds, and they expose themselves in all kinds of ways. Police and fire, obviously. No one has to inspect that to know that it's a dangerous job. Training is extensive, and we all owe them. But other city employees also expose themselves. We've had these windstorms come around lately. We've had public works people going out, sometimes while the rain and wind is still blowing, clearing the streets, and that exposes them to a lot of danger. It's been in the papers recently that a worker doing renovation at a building in downtown Kansas City fell to their death through an open elevator. Workers can be exposed to all kinds of dangers. And I would like to maybe put some kind of recognition to all public employees, if that's possible somewhere in this memorial. It may not be feasible, but I'd like to throw that out there.
I feel like we discussed that kind of early. I mean, I
That's why
thought something
said
similar at
once
one
again.
point. I mean, it did seem, though, at the end of the day, looking at the design and everything else, that a dedicated public safety memorial seemed what was best appropriate for this.
I'm trying once again.
I know. Yeah, I don't know. Anything to expand on that? I don't know. That was kind of the process.
I'll be careful with my words because it's a little raw right now. But I certainly agree with your point. There's a lot of dangerous jobs out there. Public works, fire. But unfortunately, at the end of the day, there's people out there in society that actively try to kill us. and come after the police department and police officers for no other reason other than they don't want to go to jail. I understand that. And again, apologize because it's a little raw right now with, we just buried another police officer yesterday. But that's why I feel it's important that I'm not devaluing the danger to any other job in the city or any private industry for that matter. But I think that's important that we keep this dedicated to public safety in North Kansas City.
Thank you. Further comments on this? Councilmember Alvarez.
I just would agree that it's a different nature of employment or different job entirely, and I think it should be kept separately.
Okay. Further comments? If not, I'll take a motion on resolution 23056. Correct, right? Yeah. Motion. Is there a motion?
I'd like to approve.
There we go. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Item number 11, budget amendment for Public Safety Memorial, resolution number 23057. Is there a motion to approve?
I would like to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Okay. Number 18. Oh, I'll let you read this one. There you go.
Number 18, ordinance to allow operation of golf carts on public streets. Bill number 7794, ordinance number 9591.
All right. Definitely just want to open conversation on this one this evening.
Yeah, Mayor, members of the council, July 18th, the topic was brought up for discussion. After brief discussion, we were asked to bring back an ordinance. We've done so for you tonight. We'll say we've also added in the memo a review of staff, myself, Chief Freeman, Chief Hargis, and City Councilor Barzee. Kind of go through, a quick summary. There are pros to golf carts, there are cons to golf carts. Our concern with the golf carts is all centered around safety, lack of crumple zones, seat belts, side panels. It's not that an accident's going to happen every day, but it's when an accident does happen, it's going to be much more serious. Our recommendation is not to adopt the ordinance. However, as I said, we did bring an ordinance. So, just a quick on that. We did limit, if it's adopted, golf carts to north of Armour, east of Burlington. Streets with 25-mile-an-hour speed limit or less. Golf carts defined as a vehicle that cannot go over 20 miles per hour, low-speed motor vehicle. We have, requirements in there for brake lights, turn signals, safety flag, horn or other device capable of emitting an audible warning signal, at least one rear view mirror, and we would recommend, if passed, an inspection and a permit process for our officers to know that they're allowed if passed. I'm trying to think, again, the restrictions can't be on a state highway, can cross a state highway of 45 miles an hour or less, but it can't be on, can't drive on it. I've kind of jumped through them quick, but are there questions? Anything?
The floor is open. What do we got? Councilmember Saper, there we go.
The safety concerns are there, obviously. But because of the way the ordinance that you've just highlighted for us is written, they're restricted to an area, a very select area for use, number one. They have required equipment safety features. And it seems to me that is much less hazardous to both the other vehicles and people on the road and to the people who are actually driving them than all of the scooters we have, which are accidents waiting to happen, but they haven't happened. And that's important to note, that you can speculate about what has happened, but we have a track record with, again, the scooters and so forth, and bicycles. And the evidence seems to suggest that the speculation about the hazards and safety issues aren't there, and I suspect that would be the same with golf carts. So I am in favor of moving ahead and I endorse this ordinance.
Did you have another suggestion in there, though, or you talk about the geographic area? Or did you?
Yes, the ordinance has a geographic area.
Okay, I thought you were concerned over the restriction.
No,
Okay.
no.
Okay,
Because
okay,
of that,
got it.
it
Okay.
makes it less
Now I hear you.
problematic.
Okay, there we go. Further comments on this item? Councilmember Clark.
Oh, man. There's just been a lot. I pulled my general area over there on the other side of the highway. You guys might know us. We're the other side of Ward 4. And I think originally I thought we weren't able to cross over any sort of highway system. So we were like, do you guys want to play golf carts on your block and just go up and down the street? And everyone's like, no. The general consensus from the people I polled, around 20 people, is that they said they don't feel like the streets are big enough. They feel like it's just going to add to more congestion. They were concerned about safety. I don't like to be a fun killer, but I'm very on the fence of just first wanting to just say, well, my neighborhood really can't have fun with these because we're kind of locked in by two major highways, one and in Armour Road 210. So I don't know. Let me keep hearing more thoughts.
And just to know, I mean, we don't have to pass or not pass this item this evening. We can continue to take feedback as well and suggest amendments or whatever else council may want to do. Councilmember Todd.
Yes, I also was really on the fence about this. I really appreciate that staff took time to put together and make a recommendation because, quite frankly, many of you are experts in areas that I am simply not, and that I think a lot of community members are not either. Often we see things through a lens of what makes our life individually easier, and we don't think about the community as a whole. Even after all of that, I was still on the fence for a bit. So in my very tiny poll as well of some moms in Northtown, and I'll just leave it at that, it was also a little bit mixed, mostly leaning towards not allowing it at all with concerns mostly for safety. We currently have issues even with people going the wrong way down one-way streets already in their cars, on their bikes, on their scooters, going a little too fast through the streets. So that's already a concern, and some people felt like that might even create just more congestion on our small streets. An issue of parking, we've heard parking a lot. And regardless of the restrictions, wherever you go, if you're riding in a golf cart, you're going to have to park that somewhere. And so that issue came up as well. So just something to think about and consider, and especially when I think about, more and more businesses and even in the neighborhoods as we're driving through and seeing parking on the street becoming more congested, as we are carting around, going to parks or visiting area businesses. When then that person goes to enjoy that activity, they have to park that golf cart somewhere. Whereas one of the electric scooters or a bicycle or a skateboard doesn't take up street parking. So I think that makes a difference. Another thing I considered was just, what is it about golf carts that makes me concerned? Because I couldn't quite put my finger on it at first, but I think a big difference between cyclists and skateboarders and scooters is that there's an abundance of those. And so that is something that even unconsciously we are aware of, just because, especially in our city, there is an abundance of those. I am constantly seeing kids riding their skateboards around my neighborhood, seeing scooters go by, seeing cyclists go by, and so that's something that I'm looking for. Whereas a golf cart, I just wouldn't be expecting, and so it might catch me off guard as I'm driving through the neighborhood. So that's my laundry list, I guess, of just thoughts that I had. On the flip side of that, why I'm on the fence is because I do know that there are a handful, probably a couple or a few people in the community that feel this could be helpful. And so if we are talking about passing it with the restrictions in place, I feel like it would make it a safer environment. But at the same time, passing with those restrictions would not give the people in the community really what they're wanting, because people do want to cross Armour Road to go to the restaurants and bars, and like with the current restrictions, you wouldn't be allowed to do that. So I don't know that passing this would be the benefit that people are even looking for. But I really would only feel comfortable passing something with those kinds of restrictions, considering all of the concerns that I've heard and that I have myself.
Further comments? Councilmember Fitzgerald.
I've only heard from a handful of residents on this, so a really small sample size. But that being said, I heard all comments in favor of the golf carts. Again, echoing what Councilperson Todd said, limited to north of Armour, it's really restricted in where you can go, but with some goal in mind to help it be safer, I wouldn't want to expand past that. I think I recognize that ultimately it's going to kind of be up to the owner to operate the vehicle safely. There's some risk of operating it, be it a car, golf cart, bike, scooter, any mode of transportation that you're taking on by riding or driving in one of those. So I'm kind of rambling at this point. I think I'd be slightly in favor of this with the restrictions to help it be safer, but don't feel particularly strongly on it.
We might have a motion on maybe. Councilmember Tool.
Also on the fence. I also talked to several people in the neighborhood, and mostly just most people are like, lukewarm about it. Being that I'm on the fence, and some of the arguments that were brought up before, like it would reduce the number of cars, we wouldn't need 2 cars. I don't believe anyone's going to trade in a car for a golf cart, so I think we're just adding vehicles possibly parked on the street. I don't think we're taking away. I am somebody who was in favor of the scooters, and I see people that are too young driving the scooters, which is a concern. So I'm also concerned that that will happen with golf carts as well. And you are in more direct contact with cars, all the safety issues that were brought up in the memo. So being that I'm on the fence and the police department is not in favor, I would definitely have to lean then as a no vote.
Residential area, I see that the golf carts are designed more or less for cities or areas that have golf courses or maybe a gated community, which we are not any of those. However, I think the restriction, if you keep it north of Armour Road, would be more along the lines of a gated community. I could see where there'd be some advantages, maybe riding them down like to the park or some areas like that. With any other vehicle, anything motorized, you still have to follow the safety guidelines. With anything, letting children, teenagers operate them is a safety hazard on anything, whether it's bicycle, scooter, whatever. So the neighbors that I talked to did still want to use the golf carts. I don't know that we would have an abundance of them. I don't think that people are going to run out and buy one just so they can run down to the park. I don't know, but I would still be in favor of at least trying them, and as long as we keep these restrictions.
All right, so I generally heard a lot of uncertainty. Does council have any amendments they would be?
I don't have an amendment. I just, when you were speaking, it reminded me of another comment from the memo that I want the public to hear as well, that I didn't even consider, which was the fact that we do have a high school right here in our neighborhood that would be part of the area that people would be allowed to ride golf carts. And so there is that concern of potentially a lot of newer drivers, potentially driving a golf cart. I also don't think a lot of people will go out and buy them, but I've been surprised by people before. So, who knows? But and even without being concerned about the driving of those, having all of those extra humans walking around, and unfortunately they don't always stay on campus during the school day, is just more foot traffic that is out there in the streets, and people driving their golf carts around. I don't know. That just made me think of that, and I wanted to make sure that the public heard too about that concern, that is another facet of something that a lot of these communities that do use golf carts, they don't have that. We are much more densely populated than a lot of the surrounding areas that have a golf cart community. And I've been to many golf cart communities. It's a lot of fun to run around in a golf cart, but it is different. It is different here. We have, city blocks essentially, not a lake that we're riding around, not a golf course that we're riding around. There are homes and businesses and a high school all right there. So it's very dense, and I just am concerned about that, I guess. But
All right.
again, I'm on the fence because I'm also just like, is there going to be a lot of harm? Probably not.
I am hearing a lot of on the fence. It's always an option just to hold this item for 3 weeks and address it again in September 5th, the next meeting, if council wants more time to consider the item. But that would be up to Councilmember Till.
Last comment.
Go ahead.
Is we are dense. We're never going to be a community that has golf cart paths. So the other Kansas City area neighborhoods I've been to with golf carts have golf cart paths that cut through the neighborhood and get them to places. We're never going to have that. But I guess holding it would be beneficial in that I do think this is something we need to make a decision on. It's been talked about for a long time. But holding it and letting people know we're going to vote on it would at least give people that feel very strongly the opportunity to contact us. We've all reached out to people in our neighborhood. I've reached out to my neighbors. But this would give, if you're watching and you have very strong opinions, now would be the time to reach out if we're going to hold it until the next meeting.
All right, so then I would ask if there's anyone opposed to holding it until next meeting. There, we'll go that route. Any opposed? Any opposed? If not, then we'll go to the next item, unless there's further comments on this item. I think we've exhausted it for this evening. Next item, please. There's no motion, nothing to table, right?
Nothing, yeah.
Just sweep it away.
Item 19, ordinance amending the city administrator employment agreement, bill number 7795, ordinance number 9592.
You handle your own item, Mike? I don't know how this feels weird. Tom, this is your memo, Tom? No. Okay, fine, I'll just handle it. This is the First Amendment to the employment agreement with Mike Nichols. Council did a performance review, and I wasn't actually prepared to talk on that. That's the basic. We did a performance review, and with that normally comes some sort of salary change. And council's recommendation was to increase Michael's salary to what is in the ordinance. There's the simple. Is there questions on that? There we go. Councilmember Toll.
I just wanted to say for anybody that's read through the agenda and has opened the item, it's a significant increase. It's a 21% increase. And for anyone that has pause about that, it's because we're following the same pay scale that was adopted by the city for all other employees. So there are 2 positions that council approves. Everybody else was automatically included. So if you read that and you had some question about it, that is how we landed on that number, as it follows the recommendation that was adopted by city council.
You have the squeakiest pen in the world over there. That's you. Yeah. I thought it was the air conditioner too, but that's okay. Sorry. Was there further comments after that? That squeak though. Okay. With that, I will take a motion for a first reading.
First reading.
Second.
All in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, say no. Motion carries. The squeaking got you too.
It was the pen. An ordinance approving and adopting First Amendment to Employment Agreement by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri, and Michael P. Nichols, City Administrator.
I move that bill number 7795 be placed on second and final reading and pass as ordinance number 9592.
Second?
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Tall.
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgerald.
Yes.
Councilmember Alvarez.
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Councilmember Todd.
Yes.
Councilmember Saper.
Yes.
An ordinance approving and adopting First Amendment to Employment Agreement by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri, and Michael P. Nichols, City Administrator. Item 20, approving accounts due and payable by the city through August 11th, 2023. Bill number 7796, ordinance number 9593.
Is there a motion? First reading.
First reading.
There we go.
Second.
All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries.
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through August 11th, 2023.
Please.
I move that bill number 7796 be placed on second and final reading and passed as ordinance number 9593.
Second?
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Tall.
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgerald.
Yes.
Councilmember Alvarez.
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Councilmember Todd.
Yes.
Councilmember Saper.
Yes.
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through August 11th, 2023.
I like this continuity plan we have going on now. And keep, eventually someone on this side will eventually do that. You'd think it's by ordinance the way it's been. Staff reports. What do you got? What do we got?
First, thank you all. Otherwise, reports are in the packet tonight. I believe Anthony has some comments, and then Kim does after that.
Just a real quick one, just for awareness, and sorry if you were going to bring this up, but the road district will be starting their mill and overlay work at the end of this week. They're going to start on Howell, and then move to Lynn, and then move to Swift. And so Howell Street is going to be from 10th to 12th Avenue, Lynn from Armour, basically down to 16th, and then Swift Street, 14th to 16th. They've been working their way up Swift for a while, but just want to call awareness to that. Weather permitting. Very good, yeah.
Will there be a project page on that?
Just a quick update. Are you done?
Just do it.
Just a quick update. One of the things that is in the strategic plan is kind of actively pursuing grant funding, and we partner with Bike Walk KC to add some electric bikes to the city's fleet. We are happy to announce that Bike Walk KC has been notified that they have been awarded grant funding. We are going to work with them on where those will go, but actually one of the areas is in Ward 4. It's actually over in the River Forest Park area. So more details to come. This we would be bringing forward for future city council consideration an expanded contract for services with Bike Walk KC to capture these new bikes within the fleet, but that was one of the things that we really wanted to do was to have something in Ward 4. So more details to come, but we're pretty excited.
I saw Victoria move up. Did you have something? Please, please, please. Oh, hold on. Now you're good.
So as you saw, Endless Game is going to be played at Mackin Park. It starts August 31st at 7 a.m. And the actual game itself will start at 8. And then it'll play through Monday, September 4th, finishing up at 2 o'clock. And they also have a hefty goal of trying to raise $300,000 for charity. So we hope that everybody in the community will come out. But if you do have free time, we'd love for you to go to endlessgame.org, and anybody watching at home. And there's a little tab for volunteers. So we are in hefty need of volunteers. If anybody wants to be a scorekeeper, a witness, an umpire, a runner, help make food. So Guinness said that the players cannot leave Mackin Park for the entire event. So there's going to be a lot of, we're also having bands, a beer garden. So a lot of activities going on through the whole thing. And then the other event coming up is Briarfest, which is the following weekend, September 8th and 9th. And that's a 2-day music festival. And again, love to have anybody that wants to volunteer for that. But that is free general admission, but we also have VIP passes that people can purchase, and it's going to be a great event. So.
You said endlessgame.org.
Org.
There we go.
There we go.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further staff comments? Nope. All right. We'll go to council member comments, liaison reports. We'll start off with Councilmember Tull.
Anthony, I feel like we've talked to you like every single meeting the last month, but superstorms again. So well done getting everything cleaned up. It was crazy. And Shu, I know that we've talked a few times, but I wanted to bring up again before we start any potential new development, I would really like to get something, an ordinance or something written that connects any financial aid that we give towards building projects into some sort of a sliding scale that's not concrete, but an idea based on investing in affordable housing. So I feel like that's something we have to get done before any new development may occur. And so I know we've talked about it a lot, but we have to actually get it done and in the books. So that's something I would love to meet on.
Councilmember Smith, not here. Councilmember Fitzgerald.
I'm excited to see the results of the upcoming parking study, but maybe as a more short-term matter, I'd be interested in having a discussion item surrounding the 18th and Swift parking items. We've heard a number of comments from the public over the last several meetings from that. It might be good to just, spend a few minutes discussing it, receiving public feedback, and seeing if there is any short-term solution.
Thank you. Councilmember Alvarez.
I just want to say there was a lot that was covered tonight, so I don't want to go through each and every one, but I just appreciate all the work that the staff has done on breaking down the budget so that we understand where the money is going. Also appreciate the very much for the memorial for the police department. I think maybe it is a lot of money, but I think if you're going to do it, you need to do it right. And because it's something that we'll have for years to come. Also looking forward to the activities that the Parks Department's putting on. I think they have some great programs, and looking forward to the Endless Game and the Briarfest activities. So I think there's a lot going on. So I just want to say thank you to all the people that work hard in getting those done.
Thank you, Councilmember Clark.
Looking forward to the Endless Game for Parks, and great job there. And then thank you, Connor, for speaking up for the additional bike lane barriers. Those are important. As I rode on Armour, there was one that a car had hit, and it laid sideways for a while there by Taze. So they are effective. And I'm super excited about this little gifty that we get some bikes over in Ward 4. That's exciting. You guys may come over and visit us or something sometime. I'm also excited for the progress we're making on River Forest Park. Oh man, I'm aging from that project. So is Kim. But it's going well, and everyone's doing great. And thank you so much, city staff, for, of course, all the budget preparation and sit through. And this was speedy, I think. I think it was pretty speedy tonight. That's it.
Councilmember Todd.
Yes, I want to echo the appreciation for all the work on the budget. I have heard that it's speedy compared to other years, so that's great news. And also, I think you all did a wonderful job making sense of something that when you look at it, doesn't look like it makes sense. So I appreciate that very much. Excited to attend NKC Toberfest in October to help make that a success. And yes, all of the fun and upcoming events with the Parks Department. So get out there, and also anyone who's listening, obviously you need to talk to your council people, because we are on the fence about golf carts. So come and talk. The reason this is even on an agenda is because someone came and talked to council. So if you have opinions to share, do the same. Thanks.
Councilmember Safer.
I've got nothing to add to all the good things that have been said.
Thank you. With that, again, I follow everyone else and think, did I skip you? No, I started with you. There we go. I got a lot of problems. Thanks, staff, again, for all the work on the budgets. It certainly does help receiving it earlier and then having many opportunities to discuss it and talk about it. That does make these nights flow a lot easier. But with that, council now has 3 more weeks to continue to study and think of any other further recommendations they might want to see in the budget. And with that, Tom's ready to go. He's got his briefcase in his lap and everything. This guy's ready. Number 24, please.
Consideration of a request to hold and recess into executive session as requested by the city administrator to be held on this date on a real estate matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statute 610-0212.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Is there a
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Tall.
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgerald.
Yes.
Councilmember Alvarez.
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Councilmember Todd.
Yes.
Councilmember Saper.
Yes.
And I'm striking number 5 at the moment. I no longer need that. So there we go.
Number 25.
Yeah, number 25. So with that, we will be going to executive session. No further business. Our votes will be taken this evening. Thank you.